Okay. Um, Hi. So this is a video. Hi, I'm single A. Um, I've been a top level competitive DRFG player for about 2 years now, and um, I haven't really been active on social media or been very vocal about my views. Um, just regarding this game and the characters I feel are good about it. And recently I've been trying to be more vocal about that and interacting with people so that I can help further the metagame and provide my own input and opinions on which characters are good and which characters are not as good. So, um, first off, I guess I should just talk about what DRFG is and kind of the history in it. It's been up for 2 years now, so there's a bit of history to go over, obviously. So I'll start with what it is. So DRFG stands for Danganronpa Fighting Game, a game created by Arc Systems Works. You may know them for making the BlazBlue games, um, the Guilty Gear games, and publishing other games here and there as well. They've made Goku Ball Fighter Z. Yeah, they're just, in general, kind of the anime fighter crowd. Yeah. Um, oh yeah, and like Unicorn and stuff. So, um, with that being said, obviously they made Danganronpa Fighting Game. Spike Chunsoft kind of went towards them and said, "Yeah, let's do this," and so they're doing this. And so that's what it is. It's very much, it's an anime tag fighter, very much um, very much with inspiration of BlazBlue Cross Leg Battle and Goku Ball Fighter Z and Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and any game like that. Um, so it's obviously just a game with a lot to enjoy, even if you aren't a Danganronpa fan, or even if you're not a fighting game fan, you'll still like a lot about it. So, um, over the course of the 2 years that this game has come out, it started with just a pretty impressive base roster, honestly, of the characters from the first, second, and V3 games. And then as time went on, we have gotten DLC pertaining to Danganronpa Another Episode or Ultra's Despair Girls. Um, and also the DR3 anime. And I think that's all there is. And we also get a Danganronpa Zero character as well. And there's more DLC coming along the way. So, um, is there anything else I really want to say? So, just in general, the metagame's just been shifting over a while. It still isn't concrete. It's a similar metagame to Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, where the meta doesn't really stick too well. And you've got your top tiers who are just solidified top tiers, but characters from high to mid to low mid can kind of shift around. Just they change like the weather. So yeah. Before I get into this video, I guess I should just have a preface. If you are somebody who is trying to get into DRFG, but you have not gone through all Danganronpa related media, I would recommend stepping back and not watching this if you care about spoilers for it, just because obviously the mechanics of this game and what I'm going to talk about are very much focused on, just the game itself will kind of spoil a lot of things for you, and obviously I'll be talking about the game's mechanics, so you kind of have to go in with the knowledge that you'll either get spoiled or you already know everything. So, I think that's everything I wanted to say before this started. Oh, There are DLC characters that are basically guest characters from other Spike Chunsoft, Kodaka, Uchikoshi games. That kind of little niche corner of the video game market. They are not on this tier list, or on this tier maker list, and that is because nobody has made a DRFG. Um, Nobody's made a DRFG character list, because we didn't think we would get guest characters, and so we would just always use regular Danganronpa character tier lists. So hopefully we'll have to update that later. Thankfully the characters aren't out right now, so it isn't too important, but you know. I suppose we'll just get into it and see how this goes. So I think I'm just going to go in alphabetical order, down here, and obviously, here's like all the spoilers with all these characters and stuff. And I actually forgot to pull up okay, there we go. I just wanted to make sure I had the actual list up of characters I was going to use as reference. And why are we not loading? This is very professional, I know. Just open. There we go. Okay. So, with that being said, I'm just going to go through all these characters one by one and go over my thoughts on them. And hopefully this will give newer players, which I'm assuming you are if you're coming to see this video, a more in-depth look as to what criteria there are to make characters just really good in this game, as well as hopefully allowing these mid-level players, or players who don't quite understand why their character might be bad, or which characters they should change to, or anything like that. Just hopefully this is just a general overall helping tool for players who are looking into playing DRFG, or already playing it but want to understand the game on a more fundamental level. And I think that being a top player of this game for 2 years now, not to jerk myself off here, but being a high top level player for about 2 years now, I do think that I'm a little bit qualified to talk about this. I'm not really the best at other fighting games, obviously, but this game just kind of clicks with me pretty well, so we'll just see how it goes. And yeah. So starting off, we have Akane Owari, the ultimate gymnast, who goes in A tier. I should define the tiers. S is top tier, A is high tier, B is mid tier, and I kind of find the place between B and C tier to be like the cutoff point of viability. I do think some C tier characters are viable and could see more viability in the future, but like you would have to put in a bit more work, and their metas would really have to be pushed. Obviously, Arc System could be buffing and nerfing characters, so keep in mind that this tier list is only going to be really completely correct going into patch 1.7, but I mean it'll probably still remain mostly correct for a few future patches here and there. So yeah, B is like your mid tier, C is like lower mid tier, D is low tier, and garbage is just the bottom tier. I would not recommend playing these characters. So yeah, so I'll also try to give a good breakdown of how each character works. Just these little brief run-throughs to hopefully give players an understanding of how they work, in case you're just curious and you're thinking, oh, who should I play? Like, who seems fun? I'll tell you about that as well. Alright, so Akane is A tier. So Akane is a pretty good starting point to see what helps make a character good or bad in DRFG. For starters, she has a pretty decent projectile in her meat. It is not super fast, but it's still pretty good regardless, and it helps her approach. From there, the rest of her game plan mostly revolves around her aerial approaches. Akane doesn't really have very good grounded approaches because she only has one low. and it's just her 2A, and it's like fine, but also, it's just one low. That's all she has. So if they block low, you're kind of not really that great. And it's not that spammable either. Anyways, where Akane shines is in her overheads. Um, and uh, the main core of Akane's gameplay is you use her 214S, which allows you to jump back and jump off the wall. I'll say wall in like quotation marks. You can't see my hands, but because you can do it from like anywhere on the stage, there doesn't have to be a physical like end of the stage there for you to jump off of. And then it sends you at a really nice angle. The two primary issues with it are one, she really struggles with anti-airs. If you have a character like uh who was it? There's a lot of characters in this game. I have to like think about this. If you have a character like Tenko, for example, who essentially just has a guile flash kick, you really end up getting messed up because there are just these big, long lingering anti-airs that really just mess up Akane because she really wants to get in from the air, and when she can't do that, her combo potential and approach options really shrink. Um, her meat projectile kind of helps with that. Um, but like good luck trying to get those mix-ups right. That being said, when she is able to land her hits, she does have very good damage output. Um, and then her only other issue, personally, is that it's really hard for her to get out of the corner. Some people wouldn't argue this is a bad thing, considering in DRFG, being in the corner is already just an awful thing, and you've essentially lost the game regardless. But I think having a character who is even worse in the corner, considering that she can't really wall bounce out of it, um, just purely because when you use her 2-1-4 S, she really gets nowhere because she bounces off the wall much sooner, and then she doesn't get high up in the air to jump over the opponent. Um, it's just bad. It really just doesn't help her favor. Her ground movement is still good. Don't get me wrong. She has a very effective dash that she can use to move around. But again, because most of her aerial approach options are what you want to be going for anyways, and her grounded approach options don't give her as much as the ones from the air, I feel like that's not as helpful. Regardless, Akane is still a very solid A tier, and I could definitely see you playing her. She's obviously top aided plenty of tournaments. She's a very viable character, and there's no doubt in my mind that she could go up to S tier if there was somehow more pushing of her metagame. Next up is Angie. Angie's B tier. So Angie's another really good way to express how characters can function in this game. Angie is, in most areas, not really the best character. Um, her damage output isn't amazing. She's a tiny bit squishy, and dies sooner to most combos than other characters do. And in general, her projectiles are not the worst, but they also really don't function as well or that great outside of really just acting as like little chip tools. Like your opponent is at like just one health, and you need to kill him, so you just sit all the way on the other end of the screen and then start shooting projectiles. But the reason that she exemplifies how DRFG can work is that she has a meter, her Atua meter. By filling it up with her 2NS, which has her praying to Atua, once you fill that meter up, instantly Angie gains a speed boost. And on top of that, whenever you fire one projectile, it won't just fire straight ahead of her like it usually does, but instead, it also fires in an upward trajectory and then down back into the opponent. Now, the important part about this is that because of that upward trajectory of the projectile, which is essentially just like a little sculpted head, for example, it really just depends on it's like an RNG aesthetic choice. Like it can be like a paintbrush or a chisel or anything like that. Anyways, she the upward facing projectile um, acts as an overhead forcing block, which is really good because without that, Angie has very underwhelming overheads that you really wouldn't want to use anyways, and very good low attacks. So whenever she has her full Atua meter, her block pressure becomes really good and she can get in much easier, which then allows her to take advantage of her pretty decent combos. They aren't anything insane, mind you, but once you've gotten in this game, you can do a pretty decent job of pushing your advantage state and getting a kill off of just one neutral win. Her assist is nice too, so she isn't terrible. And yeah, overall, just not an awful character by any means, but you only sparingly will see her in your top eights. Uh, so yeah, not awful again. Oh yeah, and I should mention that I'll have timestamps in the description of this video if you're interested in how a specific character is in this game, um, and you want to see how I feel about it, then you can see my views. I'll just have the list down there, and you can just click on one of the timestamps and obviously just go straight to the character that you are interested in. Anyways, moving on. Next up is Aoi Asahina, and she is a C tier to me. Um, how do I put this? So, the most direct comparison I can make is obviously going to be Akane here. Um, but they still operate very differently. They're still their own characters, don't get me wrong. They're not like, Echo Fighters in Smash or anything. So, Aoi's donut projectile is better than Akane's. It's just faster and much more spammable, which is good because she doesn't really need it as an approach tool anyways. And Aoi's best factor, her swim move, her 236S, is it's nice. And the most defining part of her character, when she can get swim combos off, it's really sick. My main problem with her though is just that with swim she can obviously low profile basically anything, but she then falls apart when any character uses a just this W crouch options. Any character can mash 2A and the swim gets beat out, which really makes it harder um for Aoi to get in and do a lot of work. When Aoi gets in, she can really push advantage. She even gets infinites sometimes if you have the right setups off of swim combos, which is just really sick, right? But again, like this is DRFG. If you're new here, we have a lot of infinites. So a character having an infinite doesn't just immediately boost them to S tier or even A tier, You really have to be able to stand on your own as a character before just being a fucking infinite. So not really much else to say there. I'll get a bit further into this later. There is an Aoi Hifumi Gundam player who does actually do decently well and shows off the potential of this character, but just the sheer lack of representation and the big issues with how much just crouching and spamming 2A hurts this character. I really would advise against picking Aoi, and I would suggest one of the characters in the higher tiers. Byakuya's B tier. So people will disagree and say he's A tier, and while I do think that he's not a terrible character, and I still think he's viable, I think he's just barely viable. You know what I mean? The best way I can put it is, uh, okay, so he has very long legs, right? Everyone knows that joke about Tagami. But the problem with it is that it's really awkwardly easy to whiff punish him. Um, because his frame data is just slightly worse to compensate for those longer limbs. And being so weak into footsies is not something you want. He also just doesn't have a dash, right? He will only walk, which again in a game like DRFG, where every good character just has the option to move so much, it really hurts Tagami's abilities to play the game. Like he has oh, sorry, it's like 10 o'clock right as I'm recording this just because I'm in a dorm room. And Tagami, he has decent options. He has his money shot, which is essentially just Phoenix Wright throwing paper, if you understand Marvel references. Um, but otherwise, his range is limited to just those moves, and he doesn't have a projectile to work with. His assist also really isn't that great, and I really wouldn't recommend having him on point either. So because of that, I really, again, he's viable. I've seen him do well. I've seen players who are very patient be able to make his footsies work, but I just think that when you have all these other characters who can just ignore footsies or play footsies better than him, it's really difficult to make Tagami work in this current metagame, especially in a metagame with Kamaru, who just zones you out so easily that you just really would rather not try to play such a slow footsies game. Like he's essentially a Shoto, like Ryu or Ken, and that would be great if this is a more Street Fighter, slower, traditional style fighting game, but it's not. It's a fast-paced anime tag fighter. You really can't get away with just being a Shoto, right? You need to have a little extra sauce on the side to really make yourself work. So that's just how I feel about Tagami. Uh, Celestia is kind of a great debate for the community right now. But I'm taking the more pessimistic side and I'm putting her in D tier. And my main reasoning for that is just so one thing ArcSys did as they went into making this game was I can tell that they took a lot of inspiration for these characters from their previous works, from the Goku Ball games, from Uniclur, from Blaze Blue, and from Guilty Gear, and they took work from like Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and Skullgirls and just general fighting games to really make this a really strong fighting game experience and give Danganronpa fans uh, the Goku Ball Z treatment, which was just a really good, not only game for fans, but also just a really strong fighting game in general. And so, where does that fit into Celestia? Celestia Ludenberg plays very similarly to Rachel Alucard from the BlazBlue series. However, there are a few issues. Her movement is much worse, I feel, and on top of that, her projectiles really don't feel as strong. And I mean, Rachel Alucard already isn't. Rachel Alucard already isn't a great character in BlazBlue games, and the overall power curve of this game is even higher than what BlazBlue has. So taking a slightly worse version of a character and putting them in a much stronger overall metagame, obviously that's not going to work that well. Now my main issue with Celestia is that she really just feels too floaty. And that sounds weird, right? But the fact that her movement is so sluggish is very harmful to her character. Because again, this is DRFG. You want to be moving. You want to have some kind of movement to really trick up your opponent. And Celestia's is she falls slower, which isn't really going to mess up that many people. Now, if she had better landing options, I would probably move her up to C tier. But as it stands, she really just feels too floaty, and it really hurts her viability. I really don't think that she has what it takes to be that great. She can maybe break into a top 8 or 2 if some low tier hero just is like godlike at this game and does all that stuff, but like I just don't I just don't see it really. So yeah, I mean obviously people debate that she could be better. I think she'll need some buffs if we really want to see Celestia at a higher level of play and getting better and better results. Chihiro is Chiaki. Sorry, I was looking at Chihiro. Chiaki is C tier, but I guess while I'm at it, no, I won't. I won't put Chihiro down yet. So Chiaki is C tier, and the best way I can put it is that she isn't really awful at anything, but she doesn't excel at much either. I do think her Galaga is a very good um her Galaga is a good projectile, and I think it's a decent assist too. And obviously Tetris Effect, her level 3 super obviously is very good as well. I mean, it's a super that just Okos. It's a little hard to hit, obviously, but it Okos. You can combo into it. So, very good move, but having a really good super isn't it really isn't the best thing that you want. It's not like the moneymaker for her. So I just think she's C tier. I think she's just a little underwhelming in too many places for me to really call her viable. And I think that if you're looking for her to do a certain thing on your team, there's a character who does that job better. Chihiro is also C tier, and the best way I can put it is Chihiro is a very good showcase of how important it is, or how important damage itself is to fighting games, especially a fighting game like DRFG. So, Chihiro has the weakest damage output of any character in this game. Each individual hit is very weak, and while optimized combos are slightly stronger than a few other characters, it still actually just sucks having a very weak overall damage output. That being said, the Alter Ego super is very similar to Amaterasu's Veil super in Marvel vs. Capcom 3, where they get to slow down time or slow down the opponent, which is obviously really good for setting up for combos. I don't think Chihiro should get a damage buff by anything, but I do think they should probably just get better frame data just here and there, just for the sake of making sure that they can win neutral better. Because the problem with Chihiro, as I see it, is you really can't play a character like Chihiro in this game. You know what I mean? Like, the best characters in DRFG can win neutral 3 times, 1 for each character. And then that's it. Like, they don't have to win anymore. Hell, technically they aren't winning it 3 times. They're winning once, and then they can maybe just catch the opponent on the incoming. So, when Chihiro has to win neutral 3 or 4 times, even with optimized combos, to beat the opponent, that's like really bad for the risk reward between the 2 characters. Because now, all of a sudden, the Chihiro player is incredibly terrified of losing neutral once because the other character is going to kill him. But Chihiro, they have to win 4 times, let's say, just to get rid of 1 character. And that's just a lot of stress on the player, and it's really hard to play consistently when you have to play similar to that. If Chihiro had better ways of getting damage off, I would maybe consider. I'd maybe consider them as a mid tier, but as it stands, I feel like Chihiro was just barely not viable enough. Just purely because of the damage output and the neutral not being as good, not having quite enough mix-ups to really force the opponent to be afraid of them. From there, we have Fuyuhiko Kuzuryu in B tier. So there's not really too much to say about Fuyuhiko, honestly. He's a fairly standard character. The main things keeping him in B tier are just his stubby-ish limbs that really hurt his ability to go to play footsies as well. And I mean, he's still fine. He's still viable. I've seen him pop up in top 8s every now and then. But, you know, besides his gun, which is just a pretty effective zoning tool, okay, I'm just gonna say this over and over again, so I should say this now. This is a Komaru-dominated metagame. You cannot focus on being a zoner when Komaru exists. Komaru is probably the best character in this game, and you cannot out-zone her. So, being a character like Fuyuhiko, where one of his best qualities is pretty good zoning, you really can't push that, you know? So yeah, I think he's still fine, and if Komaru weren't such a prevalent force, I don't think he would move even still. But he's just a decent character, and so very good on support as well. So yeah. We're finally getting an S tier character in Gonta. Gonta's just good. He's a little bit slow, which in most cases would be a very bad thing. The thing is that Gonta has a very good dash that actually has a tiny hitbox on it. It isn't very active or anything, but it can still force the opponent to block. And on top of that, he has his Bug Swarm super, which only takes 1 meter, and he activates it, and the opponent is just forced to block for so long that really lets Gonta get in. And when Gonta gets in, he just gets so much damage off of you. He has really good knockdowns that make his combos really lenient. So, just a very good character. Even though, his big body makes him combo food, and if he doesn't have that meter to activate to activate Bug Swarm, and he can't get in as easily, he will struggle a tiny bit. But even then, like, the S tier is for the broken characters, and like, when are you not going to have meter as Gonta? Like, you're gonna get in, and when you get in, you're definitely gonna start doing a lot of damage. So that's why Gonta's good. Another S tier in a row is Gundham Tanaka. Gundham is probably a top 3 character in this game. Again, tiers aren't ordered, so that's just why I'm just placing them as I go. Gundham is probably a top 3 character. He's one of the characters that I would say actually has a decently positive matchup, or a potentially positive matchup, I should say, against Komaru. His Dark Devas provide really excellent stage control, as well as his arcane spells. So I think that, with the spells, he can really push himself. And I mean, with his occult meter too, he, just by using those spells and by letting the Dark Devas hit his opponent, he can build up to slightly stronger and safer on block attacks. He's just a good character. Again, S tier is for broken characters, so I can't really point out those annoying weaknesses. And Gundham really proves that he puts it up with the best of them. So, yeah. Just gonna yawn again. Sorry. Let me drink some water and go on to Hajime. Oh man, my throat hurts from talking this much already. Okay. So Hajime. Hajime is, how do I put it? So Hajime's C tier. But that's just Hajime himself. Now, Hajime, let's just start with Hajime himself. Yeah. Um, Hajime himself is a good-ish character, but not really. He's just slightly lackluster in everything, similar to Chiaki. I don't think that he really excels in anything, and because of that, there's something that each character in this game will be able to do and beat him at, and if he's forced to play their game, he's in for a lot of trouble. But that being said, I do think that he is a very good anchor, and the reason for that is because of his Hope Project meter. When his um, when his teammates take damage, his Hope Project meter builds, which allows them to get up to, and by the time your two teammates are down, Hajime should have full Hope Project meter. And if he has full Hope Project meter and you insert 2-2 and then 2 attacks, it activates his form change, but it takes 5 special meters, so keep that one in mind. But if you do that, you get our third S tier character, Izuru Kamakura. Izuru is broken and is definitely the best character in this game. The thing is, I can't really call him the best character in this game because he's attached to Hajime. He's definitely S tier for sure if you were a standalone character, but the fact that you have to run Hajime as an anchor essentially, when there are probably better anchors, and also keep in mind that you need to have 5 special meter, which essentially means they have to somehow not spend much meter, which is bad. Not spending your meter is really bad. You want to spend meter to solidify and to just finish off your opponents. Because, that's just one less character they get to use, and that's one fewer times they have to play neutral, right? So I think that they were just better anchors, and that's why I think Hajime isn't as great. But even without that, Izuru himself is just a really good character, really good frame data, um, overall strong damage output. If you have him as your anchor, you can definitely easily clean up your games and suddenly make the turnaround, but I wouldn't place all your bets on him. You know what I mean? Like, you have to, if you spend any meter, Hajime himself is just such a garbage character. Not garbage, but he's just so unremarkable that I really can't call it. In fact, honestly, he might be D tier. Yeah, I'll move him to D tier. Okay. So, next up is Hifumi, who was our first garbage tier character. So I mentioned an Aoi Hifumi player a bit ago, and I think I'll just go over that now. So he's from Oregon. His name's Oregoner. I guess he takes a lot of state pride. He's an Aoi Hifumi and Gundam player. So Hifumi has one good thing, which is that his assist is good. Mostly when paired with Aoi, because it forces overheads, despite being a linear projectile that fires in a straight line towards the opponent, which is cool. The problem with it is that that's one specific application. Oregoner is a really good player, I have to concede, but at the same time, he's playing such a bad character. Like, if it weren't for Hifumi's assist being so good for helping Aoi, I would definitely see him playing Angie instead, because Angie is essentially just a better Hifumi in every way. Not as big of a body, better better damage output, and also just like has a meter mechanic that just obviously makes everything better. So other than that, like Hifumi is just a really bad character. Not really that many combos, pretty squishy. He really can't do that much, and he just kind of flails around like a dead fish. I just don't play Hifumi. Also, just he's a bad character. I hate him. Anyways, moving on. Himiko is one of the characters that I play. She's actually my anchor. Um, and this is an A tier character. The main reason that I see that, and I'm a bit biased on this end, is because of Himiko's assist, which is her reflector. And the reflector obviously reflects projectiles in a Komaru heavy metagame, and in a metagame where a bunch of characters have very good projectiles anyways. I can definitely see people picking up Himiko and then just seeing sudden improvements in their Komaru matchup because the Komaru can't spam as much. So, and then also that being said, Himiko herself is just a very good character as well. Her magic spells really manage to cover a good bit of the screen and force a lot of guessing games on the opponent's part, as well as having a very Nine the Phantom-esque plus 22 on block option, which obviously if you land that on somebody's block, you can just approach for free and really start applying a bit more pressure too. Obviously, some slightly stubby limbs are gonna get in her way, but she can play ranged anyways, and having a reflector as well as having zoner options definitely means that she has a pretty decent Komaru matchup that really pushes her to something else. If Komaru became less prevalent in the metagame and got nerfed, I could probably see Himiko going down a bit, just because one of her main draws, at least for me personally, is just that she's so good against Komaru, who is probably the best character in the game right now. So, yeah. Next up's Hiyoko, who is also garbage. No, she's D tier. I put her in D tier, but I could almost see her in garbage. So the thing about Himiko, or Hiyoko, yeah, is if you're familiar with BlazBlue Cross Deck Battle, you probably know about Yukiko. And Yukiko is bad because all she does is throw fans and throw fire. So now imagine that character, but she only throws fans and she doesn't throw fire. And other than that, she just really can't do anything. That's what playing Hiyoko was like. And she has a few other things there. She has almost Yumi 5B from BB Tag, but it just doesn't feel like enough. It's enough to keep her out of garbage tier, I'll say that much, but it really, she's just not good enough. She really just doesn't have the damage output you would want, and I struggle to see why anybody would play her. I don't want this character to be good either, keep in mind. Um, I think that we should have some zoners be high and top tier characters, but I don't think we should have too many of them. You know what I mean? I think there should be a diversity in playstyle between the top level, and there shouldn't be a playstyle that creeps up in multiple characters too often. Next up is Ibuki, who is B tier. If you're familiar with Guilty Gear Zerd Rev, she's just Ino. The only issue with her that I find is that her hitboxes feel a bit too small, which contributes to a bit of a range problem. Again, her footsies really aren't that great, and her hurtbox shifting on her moves actually really hurts. And it can be really easy for her to get baited into moves. If she did have bigger hitboxes, I could easily call her an A tier. And I'm a little not confident and would even maybe potentially put her into the top of C tier at the moment. But as it stands, I think she's just barely good enough to place in B tier. She just has good combos and good damage output, but again, those hitboxes could be a little bit bigger, and then I could definitely solidify my position on B tier. I'm being very optimistic with this B tier placement. Junko. Okay, so recently I made a post on Twitter that said, you know, like, oh, Junko really isn't that great in the DRFG, and a lot of people were disagreeing with me on that one, you know, because like, oh, this despair meter, oh, you know, she, you know, like you're definitely gonna get hit during it, and she can mash like crazy, and I agree mostly. So here's the issue with Junko. So Junko has a despair meter, and I mean that's really just her main gimmick, you know. And when she gets full despair meter, her frame data becomes insane, and she can basically mash on your shield, and you're going to get hit and there's not really much you can do about it. she'll easily frame trap you or force you into unblockables. And the problem with that, the problem with that is that even outside of despair mode, she has a secondary gimmick to kind of counterbalance this, which is that she takes 20% more damage than any other character in the game. This means that she just takes. I mean, it means that she has the lowest effective health in the game, which is really, really bad. Like, I've seen Chihiro players get one hit on Junko players, and that was it. That was it. There was just one initial interaction against a Chihiro player. Like, that's not the kind of character that I would really want to play. And if you're thinking about a tournament setting where you have to win game and game and game, and like once you lose too many games, you're out of the tournament. You can't. You have to be focusing a bit on your consistency as well. It really is hard for me to say that Junko is a good character. She's still viable, but I personally just could never put her in A tier or even play her or touch this character because she's just so inconsistent, and I cannot imagine getting hit once by any character and dying. Because you're already going to get hit once by most characters and die. Well, get hit once by the top tiers, but now you can get hit by any character and die, which is bad. So that's how I feel about Junko, and I apologize to anybody who disagrees with me, but you're wrong. Okay, so Kaede, Kaede is a weird case for me. I want to place her in D tier, but I think I just barely have enough reason to place her in C tier. And hear me out on this one. So Kaede's gimmick is that she has the best support, bar none. You can choose her support, as you do with most supports in this game, and she either buffs your active character, to either do 20% more damage or take 20% less damage. Obviously, you know, Kaede players or Junko players love running a Kaede alongside them to mitigate the 20% damage increase that Junko takes, but obviously you're dedicating a character slot to fix the weakness of another character, which is not something that you really want to do. You kind of want to just be able to say, yeah, these characters synergize well, not this character saves the other character from being abysmal. But other than that, Kaede just feels really underwhelming as a character herself. Her moves sometimes don't connect when it feels like they should, and her overall damage output isn't that great. Her frame data isn't that great either, so she mostly just relies on being a very good support, but she's a very, very good support. But I wouldn't really place her at anchor or point. I would place her right in the middle. Um, and again, like I I know there are players who use I know there are players who can really uh, take it to the next level with Kaede. I've seen and played friendlies against Despair Strider, and I think, Despair Strider, if you don't know, player from New York, godlike, right? Insane player. He is so good. If I could drive to New York every week to play friendlies with him, I would probably insanely improve as a player. But again, he plays his Junko Kaede and sorry, my mind is blanking right now. He plays his Junko Kaede Gonta team, and I think he really does showcase what the characters can do and how helpful it is. But at the same time, it's just you really can't um, you just can't consistently rely on having to use one character just to save another character from being bad. And it really shows because he dominates New York. And those are players who obviously understand the matchup. So it's not like he's just winning from matchup unfamiliarity. But then he goes to tournaments, and he has to play against the other best players in the world, and he sometimes just struggles to make top eights because he has to play this super volatile mid tier and this character who is barely viable and is only good because of the assist that in this case is only good because it's just so helpful on this one specific character. So when you're playing, when you're dedicating 2 of your 3 team slots to characters like those, it really becomes difficult to justify it, and he misses out on a lot more top eights. And I think that I'm never going to shame somebody for their character choices and for their team compositions, but I really do think that if he just picked up less volatile characters, that he could really show up in top eights, which I really think he's capable of. But as it stands, I think he's being held back too much by his um, character choices. I think his Gonta anchor can stay, but the other 2 could maybe leave. Anyways, that's enough negativity on Strider's part. So next up, we have Kaito, who people disagree with me on this one, but I think he's B tier. Kaito has very good aerial attacks and very good landing options, but he's overall slow-ish, and again, you really want to be able to move in this game. I know I haven't mentioned every aspect with every character, but it's kind of just most prevalent on the slower characters, right? It's how do I put it? It's easier to tell when something is important when a character is lacking in it. You know what I mean? Like Chihiro was bad because of poor damage output, and then you all of a sudden realize, oh wow, damage output is important. Hifumi is really bad because of a lot of things. That's a bad example. Celestia is really bad because of poor mobility, and then you realize, oh wow, I really want to be able to move in this game. Etc. Aoi is really bad because her hitbox is just really hurt, and then you say, oh wow, well I wish I had played a character with bigger hitboxes or that got off hits easier, stuff like that. So Kaito is a B tier character for a few reasons. Spoilers for Maki, but Maki is for the most part just a better Kaito. Kaito just has better supers. Again, like Chiaki, has an Oko super that you can combo into, which I think is great. But at the same time, it's you can't it's just harder to get into. He can't use his crossbow as well as Maki can, just because of his his overall worse speed. I think that obviously if you're able to get him in and then use his launcher and get the opponent up into the air and start comboing them, I think it's great. But as it stands, getting him in is just too difficult, and it's just a bad situation for Mr. Rocketman over there. Kazuichi, I want to put him in garbage tier, but he just barely has enough viability to put him in D tier. I almost want to put him in C tier too, but I'll leave him in D. His Robomarus are really the only thing that make him viable. Well, not even viable, just outside of garbage tier. Kazuichi's main problem is that he's just squishy and he really struggles in neutral. His attacks are just not the best, and his combo potential isn't great either. The good thing about his Robomarus, though, is that he places them on the ground and they are completely unblockable, so they force these jumps. Twitchy has a pretty decent anti-air, but it isn't good enough, and he doesn't get enough off of it for me to say this is his game plan, right? Force jumps with the Robomarus, force those jumps, run in anti-air, get big combos off of that, rinse and repeat, right? He's not that kind of set play character. And so instead what you have is a character who is trying to be a zoner that forces your jumps, and a metagame with Komaru, who is just by and far the better zoner when you compare her to every other character in the cast. So you really can't play Kazuichi without just really struggling against literally the most common character in the format. So I just really don't recommend it, and I don't like soda that much anyways, so, you know, it's just how it is. Kiibo, this is a character I do like, and thankfully he is S tier. Kiibo is more or less an overhaul of Magneto from Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Just, big ass laser, really good overall damage. He can activate flight and fly around the stage for a short period of time, flight cancel for his combos, and he's super sick. Um, and, again, not really any major weaknesses either, but just not the best in the game. Um, he's just a strong character. I can see him just getting splashed onto teams who just need just that little extra dose of top tier. uh, I just like him. He's a very good character. There's not much else I can say. Just a good character, and he's pretty sick too. Yeah. Kirumi. So, Kirumi. Okay, so I like Kirumi a lot. She's she's one of my characters. She's the second part of my team. Himiko's the anchor. I'll tell you the first or my point later. And the reason Kirumi is good is because bar Kaede, she has the best assist in the game. The difference between that though, before you say, oh, well, you put Kaede in C tier, so where's Kirumi A tier? Me. The difference, and the core difference here is that Kirumi is a functional character on her own, right? You can use Kirumi, and she won't be harmful to your play. You aren't just giving up a character whenever she comes in. She can sweep in and out of the game pretty well. It's hard to punish her after she's hit your shield, which is really helpful. Because you can just kind of feel out your opponent, dive out, and then dive back in, play those kinds of footsies. So yeah, not really much else I can say. She's just a good character. Then we have another good character in Taka. Now Taka's base form, yes, base form, you heard me right, is already A tier. He's just a really solid character, pretty good damage output, pretty good frame data, pretty good hitboxes. He's just solid in every situation. But what really saves him and pushes him even further is his bro meter or Kyodai meter for the Japanese crowd. And with it, once it fills up completely, he becomes, you guessed it, Kyondo Ishida. And when he enters Kyondo mode, he goes just insane, right? It's about as strong as Junko's Despair mode, maybe even a little stronger, honestly. He just does way more damage to, I believe the exact number is like 15%, maybe 20% more for each hit, and then his frame data gets a little better on a few moves. He's just a really solid character in general. If you just want a fun character, I would say pick Taka. He's just good. And I agree, like, hashtag low tiers are not allowed in a school environment. Okay, like get out of here. Get out of here, Scribs. So, glad I got that one out of the way. How much time have I spent on this? This video is an hour long. How many characters did I put down? 9, 15, 19. Oh, I've only put down 24 characters. Okay. And we're an hour in. Okay. Give me a minute to just drink some water and clear my throat. Oh, God, my throat. Okay, I can get this up. This is all just stream of consciousness. I'm just going with it. We're doing it live, and I refuse to edit my videos. So, next up, we have Kokichi, who is, like he's mid tier again. He's viable. The best way I can describe Kokichi is he's just a bunch of mix-ups. You know, he's just got that mix that people really love to see. You know, he really mixes you up. But again, just low damage output in general and kind of stubby limbs really hurts him. Um, I just personally don't like fighting him either. It kind of turns into this mess of just like having to block, having to make these defensive reads. Um, that's kind of because of the characters that I play. Already wanting to play defensive, and then you know he kind of messes me up by having me have to make some reads on which side I block on. But that's besides the point, I guess. Um, he's just mid tier. He's fine, not amazing, no damage output. It hurts him obviously, but he has the mix ups to really allow himself to have that issue. So this is another controversial uh, pick from me, but I stand by it completely, and it is Korekiyo being D tier. So the thing about Korekiyo is everybody looks at this character and says like this character is at least B tier, like this character is viable, right? Um, and I just can't help but disagree. My main reasoning is okay. So let me talk about first what makes Korekiyo good. Korekiyo, the main draw to Korekiyo is that he has the best launcher in the game. Um, launchers being the special button, just in case you didn't know. His is his seesaw, haha, and it's super big. And launches them into the air, and he can get some pretty good combos off of that. That being said, though, it's it's a little bit hard to for me personally to justify it because of his slow movement speed and his inability to really play footsies. Like Byakuya, he has all of these long limbs that he gets to use to fight, which is great until you start whiffing your moves. And then you really start to hate things because your leg is out there and you're about to get punished because your frame data is just slightly worse than what Byakuya has. His gameplay really just revolves around spamming launcher over and over again. He doesn't have good anti-airs either. So if the opponent just jumps over launcher to deal with it, which a lot of the faster paced characters in this game can do, he's not going to have a good time. And that's just why I think Korekiyo is bad. Obviously people would disagree with me. He's seen some results here and there, but I think once people really deal with him, it's just not going to be a pretty time for him. Okay. Next up is Kyoko. B tier. Just mid tier. The best way I can describe Kyoko for new players is take Marvel vs. Capcom 3's Phoenix Wright. Still just looking for evidence and getting stronger because of it. Now take away anything that could be considered broken about Phoenix Wright, and then making the base character stronger and the evidence collected stronger, but not giving them like a quote unquote broken mode or anything. That's Kyoko. Mid tier, you have to start the game off slow. That's the primary issue, and the other issue being that again, if you start the game off slow, Kamaru exists. If you start the game off fast, these other characters exist who can definitely rush you down and really pose a threat to you. Okay. Next up is Leon. I barely ever put him in B tier. I honestly think he's a C tier character, but enough people think he's good that I'll just say he's B tier just so everybody shuts up about it. Leon means I'll go, oh, he's broken, dude. I don't care. His range is decent. His damage output is decent. But again, he doesn't shine in anything, and other characters will just do what he does better, and that's just going to continuously be the thing that I just keep saying. If a character is just outclassed in the things that they do well by a lot of other characters, you may as well just play one of those many other characters. So, Leon's only B tier. He's still viable. I just wouldn't touch him. If you need a breakdown of how he plays, look at Junpei from the Persona Arena games. Oh, God. Okay, Mahiru is C tier. Mahiru's flash move from her camera is very good, just being this very powerful stun on grounded opponents that allows you to get any combo follow-up you want, and just does a very good assist. But again, the character herself is just not good at dealing enough damage, and her frame data isn't good enough to really warrant like using her. Like when you actually have to have her in, she just doesn't do well enough. Maki's S tier. Some people put her in A tier. I put her just slightly above. She's just so fast and has such good frame data and is so good at really pressuring the opponent and forcing them down into suboptimal situations that I can't not put her in S tier personally. That's literally all I can say about it. It's just like, she's really good at rushdown, and when she gets in, she's deadly. Is that a pun? Pun intended. Not much I can say about it. She's just really good. Makoto is D tier. There is nothing remarkable about him. I don't think that he is really that great at anything. I just don't, like, he's just not good at anything. He's essentially a weaker Hajime, who I just barely put in C sometimes. Or yeah. So, just, like, I don't see it. And I think Hajime just needs something to make him stand out or be worthwhile in any capacity if I even wanted to move up to C tier. Mikan's also D tier. Her frame data is so bad on the moves that do Mikan things, because that's what we needed. The only good part about her is that she has a good support, like some characters do. Hers allows her to heal off the red health of one of her teammates. The problem is that if you want to do that, you're definitely dropping your combo in order to do that, or just sitting in neutral, hoping your opponent doesn't do anything. It just takes too long. And like just again, as a character herself, she's just so not good enough that I really could not recommend her. Her frame rate is just so bad. You can't make her work. So next up is Miyu, who I think is A tier. She has Doom missiles. Again, Marvel vs. Capcom 3, Doom missiles. You literally can't go wrong. Talking about the rest of the character though, she's still nice. I would certainly not object to moving her, like specifying like higher A tier maybe, but she's just good. She has overall good inventions and stuff. She's got these Doc Ock arms that allow her to just like poke at opponents from further away, which is really nice to have for a very footsies based game. And they essentially act as swords where they don't have hitboxes. So yeah, that's really all I can say about me. Just an overall good character, jack of all trades, and then some. Mono means are carried. Here's why. Mono means don't understand how easy they have it when they can just touch somebody's shield and never stop touching their shield. Like, I wish I had the amount of shield pressure and sheer unga bunga capabilities as Mondo mains do. And obviously I hate it because of the characters I play, because of that just raw shield pressure, but he's just good, and there's not really much I can do about that. I like Mondo's character though, so it's fine. But yeah, just very unga. He really just gets to go in, touch your shield, hit you, and his general damage output obviously is just very good as well. being another one of the heavyweights of this game. So, can't really go wrong with him. Mukuro is A tier. So think of Maki, right? But instead of crossbow, it's gun, which is a slightly worse projectile in this case, which doesn't act as an approach tool. It acts as like a sort of iffy zoning tool. And then she has grenades, which are good for forcing movement. Forcing people to move around or forcing people to block, etc. So why is she not in the same tier as Maki? It's mostly because she just doesn't have as much speed and has just, like, she has some moves that are faster in frame data. I'm not really going to compare frame data between the two. Just, it's trade-off between the certain moves. But she's just slightly slower and worse at rushdown, so I just feel like Maki is just better for the metagame, I would say. And that's why Mukuro, the 60th student hidden somewhere, etc., etc., is only A tier instead of S tier. Nagito is a character that I hate in this game with all my passion. If you want to know why, Nagito's biggest gimmick is that there is a 1 in 6 chance of any attack hitting him, including while he is in a combo state, of that combo just dropping, right? Actually, no, that's not true, sorry. It doesn't affect combo states, but it does affect in just like raw neutral, right? When he's in just a regular position. So with that, imagine that you hit him and he loses neutral and you hit him, but there's no damage, he isn't stunned, and then he hits you, right? Congratulations, you hit the 1 in 6 chance of not being able to just finish the game already. And and then he hits you and then you get hit by a spear of Gungnir, and then you just feel bad. Like, you just feel shitty for it. So, yeah, it's just bad. I don't like fighting Nagito, so I'm glad that he's not the best character, because having that kind of gimmick is just miserable. Nekomaru is A tier. A lot of people say that Nekomaru is S tier, and I would agree with them were it not for one of Nekomaru's 2 gimmicks. So let's start with the positives. Nekomaru is a very strong bruiser, right? And when he gets in, which isn't too hard for him, keep in mind, he can really, really do a lot of damage, like a lot of other characters in this game. The problem, and then also and then the other thing he has is, at the cost of 5 meter, you can activate his Mechamaru form. And by doing that, he just becomes even stronger, even faster, all that stuff, right? He takes less damage. But this comes with a caveat, which is his heart condition. Nekomaru always loses if there is a timeout, right? Which creates an awkward ordeal for you, because knowing this, your opponent can just time you out as Nekomaru, and you want to use Nekomaru as your anchor, because then you can use his 5 meter to activate his Mechamaru form. But at the same time, if you run him as your anchor, then third timeout you just lose automatically every single time. So I don't know. Also, again, it's a 5 meter mechanic. So if you end up using too much meter earlier on in the game, you're not going to have that 5 meter when Nekomaru comes in. And then you're going to have to play regular Nekomaru before going into Mechamaru. And you might not even get to use Mechamaru. And whether or not you activate it or not, you still have to worry about getting timed out and then losing in just losing to timeout, even if you have the health lead, because then your health goes back to 0 whenever the clock hits 0. Peko is S tier. So another character in this game is Munakata, who is basically improved Yu Narukami in BB Tag and Persona Arena. Imagine that, but even better. That's what Peko is. And there's not really much else I can say about that. Peko is just a really strong character, a swordy and an anime fighter, so has good range and good frame data to go with that. Overall, good character. Kind of struggles against Kamaru, but who doesn't? Rentaro. Okay, so I put Rentaro in garbage tier, even though he's technically D tier, and I do this purely out of spite. Everybody thinks Rentaro is like not the worst character in the game, and I agree, he's not the worst character in the game. The problem is just like, dude, how are you going to... Okay, let me explain Rentaro's gimmick, which is obviously a spoiler for Danganronpa V3. So, Rentaro's gimmick is his survivor bonus. If you lead a game with Rentaro, you specifically have to lead the game with him. Switch him out, or if he gets switched out by the opponent, and then he does not come in until he is the last character alive on your team, he gets a survivor bonus, which increases everything about him. His effective health, his damage output, his frame data, his range, his hurt boxes, whatever. Which is great. The problem is that you have to essentially have him as your point, and then you have to raw tag somehow, because the opponent's not going to let you the opponent's not going to switch him out for you, right? Especially not into your third slot. So, Rentaro is just really not that great. And you can argue like, oh, but then your opponent's supposed to do a less optimal combo so they can switch him out. And like, okay, but they're just gonna hit whoever comes in anyways, and then you've just lost your survivor gimmick. It's just not. I don't. Eh. Hoshi Ryoma. So, a lot of people say Hoshi is garbage tier. With the buffs that came from 1.6, I think he's slightly better, and even the base character honestly isn't that bad. So hear me out. Ryoma's biggest gimmick is his steel tennis ball, right? And because of it, he can essentially turn any game into Lethal League, and he can put a lot of pressure by rebounding the tennis ball into the wall and towards the opponent and back to him over and over and over again. Which gives him like really good corner pressure too, obviously. But I mean, that's just it. Like, being able to turn the game into Lethal League and really making the opponent scared to play the game and controlling so much stage, obviously it's a gimmick, but there's a reason that Daiotsu, I think I'm pronouncing that name right, a top Lethal League player, just picked up Hoshi Ryoma. And, obviously he also just has, like, he also has his, Sakura and Maki in the back, just for the sake of cleaning up in general. But, like, people mostly know him for his Ryoma. And it's because he can just play Lethal League and he just gets so much stage control. And, Hoshi's movement isn't the best, and he has pretty bad frame data. And his moves are just kind of stubby. But when he gets to play his game, Hoshi just isn't garbage, as opposed to when Hifumi or Rentaro get to play their game, they're still just bad characters. Like, I still would not recommend you play them. So, then we have Sakura, S tier. There's really not much I can say about Sakura. It's the same type of thing as Gonta and Mondo and Nekomaru. Well, not quite Mondo, but as Gonta, just a strong character. Everything you want to see in a grappler, especially on, like, Gonta, Nekomaru Sakura teams or Gonta Mondo Sakura teams. You've really just conditioned your opponent to be so used to blocking and getting into the corner so frequently. and then you have a grappler who just punishes them for doing that exact same thing. It's really strong. The opponent really has to be careful to not play scared. They can't be scared of being scared, is the joke that typically comes around when there's commentary going on. Just Sakura's strong in general. Everything you want in a grappler. And then some. Oh. Sorry, I have to yawn again. I'm tired. Sayaka's D tier. I'm not talking about this anymore. Sayaka's just bad. If you've played this game for more than 2 seconds, you know that Sayaka is bad. Shuichi, C tier. So hear me out on this one. Shuichi is, of the 3 protagonists, technically this Kaede too, but you know what I mean, is probably just the most functional, and just the best overall. But I think if you're looking to get into this game, I would absolutely recommend Shuichi as your beginning character and as your anchor, or sorry, as your point. The way Shuichi works is that he has a support meter. He starts off fairly weak, but whenever you use your assist, his support meter goes up. And if you can get your support meter up to level 3, that's the strongest, and he becomes a pretty good character. Not great, obviously, but again, just a good character. Obvious problems with this are, you have to play slow in a metagame where either the character is going to be faster and rush you down and dominate you, or you're going to have to fight Kamaru, who's just going to zone you out and make you really wish you hadn't played slow and just rushed in instead. Not great, not bad, it's eh. Sonya feels like worse Fuyuhiko. Like Ibuki, sometimes I put Sonya in the B tier, but like Ibuki, just flip-flops between B and C tier. It feels like a worse Fuyuhiko. She summons her Nova Celic soldiers, which are great, but, and they control a lot of space, but it just doesn't feel good enough. And she just feels like she's on the cusp of viability sometimes. And then sometimes she feels bad. Like, of these characters, I would say, like, Shuichi is probably the most valuable C tier. And then maybe Sonya is, and maybe Chihiro could be seen as viable if they got some buffs here and there. But it's not that great. So, then there's Tenko, who is my character that I can simultaneously out with Tenko, followed by Kirumi, and then my anchor is Himiko. So, what's so good about Tenko? Tenko is Iron Fist from Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Already, most fun character in this game. Easy, free. But then she also has the ability to play very well defensively, because, that's her character, that's her talent. And then she has good grabs, too, so she can actually get things off of throws, which is something that, like Iron Fist, for example, isn't able to get. She's just such a fun character, and while she definitely struggles against Komaru, which is why if I were ranking these within tiers, I'd probably put it like bottom of it, I would say. She's so good, and obviously I fixed that issue with my Himiko. Tenko's just really fun. I love playing Tenko so much. She's just, a Rekuken character, plus the ability to use, like, Guile Flash Kick, for example. Like, that's kind of the defensive part of her. And then also just has, like, semi-grappler-ish stuff. Teruteru is bad. Just like Sayaka, I am not explaining this any further. Teruteru is not worth the time of day. In the amount of time that I've talked about Teruteru, I've thought about Teruteru more than I would ever like to. Moving on. Toko, C tier. Toko's she's not that great. But 3 times a game, she can use her stun gun to take a tiny bit of her health off to go into genocider mode, which, lets you use despair mode. It's just a good, like, flurry of attacks. Like, you're going to do a lot of damage, you're going to attack, you're going to just demolish the enemy, you're going to pressure them, but it only lasts for a short period of time, and you have to take a bit of self-damage for it, which I really don't like. So, yeah. Smoky is C tier, almost. I'll put Smoky in B tier. I'll be a bit generous on this one. So, how do I say this one? Oh, sorry, I never finished with the Toko. Toko, just character, better character that you can use 3 times a game. Samugi. So Samugi takes clear inspiration from Double in Skullgirls, where, you just get to do stuff that other characters do when you kind of mishmash them together. I just kind of wish that Samugi took character moves that were better in a few slots. She isn't bad by any means. I've seen her go places. I just wish that she was a little bit better in a few areas here and there. Finally, there's the Ultimate Imposter, who's bad. I don't want to talk about this. He's just worse Twogami in basically every way except for slightly better damage output. And Hero, who is just bad. The only upside he has is that he has a 30% chance to do more damage with each move, which is like, I'm not doing that. All right. So that's all those base game characters, and now we can get into some of the DLC characters that showed up. I hate you. I hate you, Haiji. I hate you so much. I'm so glad that you're bad in this game. Hiyoko, I love. I love Hiyoko. She's such a cool character. B tier. Not bad. Not great. Just mid tier. Using her charm is good. She definitely has her bruiser capabilities and rushdown capabilities. She isn't as slow as you would expect. She has a good dash, obviously, which allows her to really get in. She just has a good grounded game and with some decent aerials to boot. Again, I'd recommend other characters, but if you have an emotional attachment to Hiyoko like I do, I could definitely see you playing her and not absolutely hating it, but you have to be willing to put forth the extra effort and show your stuff. And then there's the Warriors of Hope, and I really don't want to talk about these guys for very long, so let me just take all of them real quick and toss them in here. There we go. Bad, bad, bad. Why are you in a wheelchair? I get the gimmick, but she's just so slow because of it. Slightly less bad because it's just faster. That's all I'm going to say about the Warriors of Hope. So then we have, Juzo. And then I'll also toss in Munakata while I'm here. So Juzo is Akihiko from Persona and BlazBlue. Just really strong. He gets in ones. He feels good to play. He's a boxer. It's slightly difficult for him to get in, and he has no, or rather, he has one overhead, which is really easy to see coming. So I personally, you're not going to get opened high by him, by a man with one overhead. That's pretty easy to see. So that's kind of his main issue, where he can hit your shield, but he's never going to hit you. You know what I mean? And when he hits the overhead, he doesn't get as much off of it anyway. So just block low. You'll know when the overhead is coming, and then just go back to blocking low. And then Munakata is just better Unarakami. That's really the best way I can describe him. He's just a good, flashy anime sword fighter, but just not as good as Peko, which is the main thing holding him back. Kamaru, yay! She's just a really good zoner. If you want to know what makes Kamaru so broken, it's her hacking gun. And the way it works is, for some reason, Arxis decided it would be really fun that after she shoots a projectile, she can cancel that into bullet change, which she can then cancel that into firing again. So if you can imagine, that just turns into her firing off 8 bullets at a time, because it'll stop when she gets back to the first bullet that she started at. So she just fires 8 bullets at a time. Like she goes, oh, break, stun, dance, etc. And it's like, I don't like fighting Kamaru. I am so glad that I have Himiko to make approaching Kamaru and hitting her easy. And that's that. You can fit Kamaru anywhere on your team, and she'll do fine. And that's really all I can say about it. Kamaru, there's a reason that Kamaru just shows up in every single top 8 for at least like 5 or 6 slots. It's just so painful. I really don't like fighting Kamaru. Anyways, Monokuma, A tier. He's fine. He's good. He does good damage. He has pretty good frame data. He copies the opponent's super, which is really good in some matchups, like, Kaito and Chiaki and one of you guys is Inoko super. Who was it again? I think it was Mondo. Just cases like those where he just copies their supers and can combo into Oko supers, which is just a neat gimmick, befitting of Monokuma. So yeah, just nice. And then oh right, these two. Ryoya, I think is your name. You're just bad. It's Junko, but you have to learn your moves. And with no despair meter, I get what they were going for when they made this character. She's just so awful. I just don't. She's essentially a joke character, right? And I wouldn't play this character. And then Psycho, I would say C tier, maybe B tier, but I'll leave her in C tier for now. The main thing just being that, like a few other characters, like Kyoko, for example, she likes to collect her, the pharmaceuticals, and then she can go into her kind of like berserker rage mode. And in that case, she's very good, but you have to start off slow, and I think that just that mode and the overall character in general is just worse than, say, Kyoko or Ishimaru or, about on par as Toko and such. So that's how I feel about that. And I think that's every character in the game. Yeah, so then I guess I'll go over the the upcoming DLC characters and how I think they'll go. So the Great Gozu is one of them. I think it'll be good. A nice little grappler to mix up the teams of, or to give more variance to the grappler teams of Gonta and Sayaka and Nekomaru, just another one of those big bodies who can play that kind of game where you really get scared to block. I forget your name, which is bad because I just watched your trailer. He's gonna be like a C, I think, maybe like at the bottom of B. Like he's just not gonna be that great. I wish he was better because he's a cool character that I like, but oh well. Before I get into any of the other guys, yeah, okay, here's the other DR3 character. I forget your name too, but you're just gonna be fast and have knives. You're probably gonna be A tier. Yeah. I'm kind of burnt out on these guys, and it's purely hypothetical anyways, which is why I'm just placing them in this tier instead of hypothetically placing them in higher tiers. Bodyguard, 8 Brothers guy, Ishido or something. I don't know. They'll be good. They'll be A tier, maybe even like the bottom of S tier. They're just better Byakuya or Korekiyo. They just have these long limbs, but they get to actually use them and be fairly fast about them too. So yeah, but obviously the main issue still stays that you're sticking your legs out for the opponent to whiff punish and hit, which is not something you want. And then that just leaves 3 other characters in this slot, I think. Yeah. Where are they? So there's Yuta Asahina, who I think will obviously be B tier. I think he'll be viable. The main reason I say that is because his swim move is faster and seems to have a slightly bigger hitbox too, which again are just like the main issues that Aoi has. She's just slightly too slow, and and her swim move, you can't really use it in neutral. You just can't. You'll get beat out any day of the week. So it's just good. I think he'll be B tier. And then neurologist guy, I forget your name too. You can tell I'm mostly concerned with the 1, 2, and 3, and another episode. He's fine. I mean, he doesn't look anything special. He'll probably be high C tier, maybe low B. I don't know. He just seems like fine and doesn't have anything insane about him. And finally, Fuyuhiko's sister. I forget your name again. Eh. She actually looks pretty broken, I have to be honest. Like, her moveset looks like a really ruthless rushdown character, but I'm not going to say much more than that. I think she'll be an S tier, or at worst, an A tier, and just be better than her brother, which seems kind of thematic. Oh, God. Anyways, that's it. I'm done. That's the entire roster. Here it is, just all laid out for you. Oh, wait, I forgot about the guest characters. Okay, so there were a few guest characters announced. Date slash Aiba from the Eye of the Somnium Files game. I think he'll be A tier, maybe S tier, just because Aiba is so good for him. I think he'll be good, and his Evolver shots seem pretty helpful too. Then they're also adding in the um, they're adding Junpei and Sigma from the Zero Escape franchise. I think they'll also be pretty good. Probably, I think Junpei will be like high B, and then Sigma will be like low A. Sigma just because he does a bit more damage and has a bit more range than Junpei does. The Junpei's a bit faster, so maybe they'll just be kind of evening out. But yeah. And then the last one is they didn't show off who the character was yet, but they said they were gonna have a Death March Club character. I don't know who that's gonna be. Hopefully it'll be somebody cool. But yeah, I hope they add in a Tribe 7. Or was that the one I was thinking of? The Spike or Tokyo Games baseball game. I hope they add in a character from that too, because that just seems like cool in general. And I hope that game gets some representation in this game too. Anyways, now that I'm done with that, that is the DRFG tier list from my perspective. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any more questions or you want to argue with me in the comments about why I think a certain character is in a certain position and you want to disagree with that and argue with me, I will happily explain to you why you are wrong. But oh god, my throat hurts. I shouldn't have been talking this long. How long is this video? Okay, hour 30. That's cool. I talked really fast. Hopefully everything was like intelligible. um so yeah, I'll just do all that stuff. If you want me to explain a character more in depth too, I can do that. So just yeah. Again, this has been out for 2 years. I'm so glad that you're taking interest in it now. And I hope that you really uh I hope that if you start playing this game or start picking it up competitively, that you really get to enjoy the game, because this is a game that I've really fallen in love with, and I hope that other people get to fall in love with it too, and really get to and we really get to grow the scene. So yeah, thanks for watching this. Stay safe, everyone. Yeah, just stay safe. Thanks for watching the video. I guess like, comment, and subscribe too. Since I feel like I should say that. I'll just show this video on some fucking Reddit and put it on my Twitter. I'm gonna stop talking now. Anyways, peace, y'all. Thanks for watching.